The morning sky over New York was clear when the signal came. At first, the control room at the United Nations thought it was a strange solar burst. But when the frequencies formed a repeating pattern, they knew it was no accident. The signal carried a message, not in any human language, but in a universal translation tone that the world had never heard before. Inside the main assembly hall, leaders and delegates from across the planet were already gathering. Security officers stood in every corner, their faces tense. The tall glass walls reflected the flags of almost every nation. This was not a normal meeting. Something was about to change the course of human history. At exactly noon, the sound in the hall changed to a deep hum. A beam of white light appeared in the center of the stage, twisting and forming into the shape of a figure. The light faded, revealing a tall alien with silver skin, elongated arms, and glowing blue eyes. The being stood perfectly still, its voice echoing without moving its mouth. "I am Varen, envoy of the Galactic Council," the voice said, each word slow and steady. "You are representatives of Earth, a young world. The Council has reviewed your progress and has decided you will surrender sovereignty. You will join the Galactic Order as a subordinate world. This is not a negotiation. You have 10 cycles to submit." Guests filled the room. Some delegates stared in shock, others in silent anger. 10 cycles, according to the data flashing on the hologram beside Varen, meant 10 days in Earth time. Varen continued, "If you refuse, the Council will ensure your compliance by force. Do not test our will." Then the light consumed the alien again, and it vanished without leaving a trace. The silence in the room was heavy. Every leader knew that whatever just happened was real. The message had not been broadcast only here. It had gone out to every major communication network across the globe. Every civilian with a working screen had just witnessed the demand. Commander Paul was not a politician. He had been a test pilot, an astronaut, and later the head of Earth's Joint Defense Initiative. But today he was seated in the far back, observing. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd. He could see fear spreading fast. Even the most confident leaders looked uncertain. The Secretary General of the United Nations, a calm middle-aged woman named Mara, stood and tried to bring order. "We must remain calm," she said firmly. "We have 10 days to decide. We will gather information, understand their capabilities." "And understand their capabilities?" interrupted the Prime Minister of a small island nation. "They appeared in our building without warning. That alone proves they can do whatever they wish, which is exactly why we must not act out of fear," Mara replied. "We need to think. We cannot give away the freedom of our planet in one moment." Paul leaned forward. "With respect, Madam Secretary, thinking will not be enough. They have already decided what they want from us, and they believe they can take it without a fight." All eyes turned toward him. Paul was known for speaking directly, without polite padding. "History shows us," he continued, "that when someone demands your surrender, it is rarely the last demand they make. If we kneel today, we will never stand again." Some leaders nodded, others looked troubled. A few exchanged whispers. The room was divided. A large screen flickered to life on the wall, showing live feeds from space observatories. An image of Saturn's orbit filled the screen, and alongside its rings were shaped ships, huge and sharp-edged, moving slowly toward the inner solar system. The Council was not waiting to see if Earth would say yes. They were already sending their fleet to this. "Is not a display of diplomacy," Paul said quietly. "It is a display of power." The meeting broke into smaller groups. Advisors, scientists, and generals were summoned to private rooms outside the UN building. Thousands of protesters had already gathered. Some carried banners demanding peace at any cost. Others shouted for resistance. News channels replayed Varen's appearance every few minutes, analyzing every detail. That evening, Paul walked through the quiet streets near the river. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and red. He thought of the words Varen had spoken: surrender, subordinate world, 10 cycles. The terms were cold and absolute. But what struck Paul most was the confidence in the alien's voice, confidence that Earth would break. He remembered humanity's past, the times when small groups stood against empires, the times when desperate armies fought not for victory, but for survival. Humanity's history was not peaceful, but it was filled with moments when people refused to kneel. As he walked, his communicator buzzed. It was a secure call from Dr. Yara, head of the Lunar Defense Base. Paul, her voice, came through, steady but urgent. We've confirmed that the objects near Saturn are armed. Energy readings are high. If they keep this speed, they will reach Earth's orbit in 8 days. That's sooner than our deadline, Paul said. Yes, which means they are not giving us a choice. We need to prepare now. Paul stopped. On the bridge, looking down at the water. I'll call a meeting tonight. No public records. Just the people who can act. 2 hours later, in a heavily guarded underground room, Paul sat at a round table with Dr. Yara, General Liu of the Eastern Defense Command, Admiral Race of the Pacific Fleet, and several scientists from the Orbital Weapons Division. The room was dimly lit, the screen showing only encrypted data feeds. We cannot match their numbers. General Liu said bluntly, our fleets are smaller, our weapons untested against alien armor. But we have advantages they might not expect, Yara replied. We have railgun platforms hidden on the moon's far side. We have prototype stealth drones built for asteroid mining that can bypass certain shield types, Admiral Race added. And we know our home terrain. Space around Earth is filled with satellites, debris, and narrow gravitational lanes. We can use that to our advantage. Paul listened, letting them speak. When they finished, he leaned forward. The Council expects fear. They expect hesitation. What they don't expect is a strike before they can position themselves. If we can cripple part of their fleet early, we might buy time and show them that Earth will not go quietly. The table was silent for a moment. Then Yara said, it's risky. But if we wait for them to fire first, we'll lose everything. Paul nodded. We have 8 days. We will not waste them. That night, as the group dispersed, Paul stood outside the bunker and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien armada was on its way, confident in its power. But they had not lived on Earth. They had not seen how far humans would go when their freedom was on the line. In the dark sky, the stars seemed brighter, almost watchful. Paul knew the days ahead would decide the fate of the planet, and he also knew one thing for certain: when the Council arrived, they would find a world ready to stand. The next morning, every major capital city on Earth was alive with urgency. From the crowded streets of Lagos to the high towers of Tokyo, news screens replayed the alien envoy's message. Anchors spoke in hurried tones, and analysts argued over what should be done. For the first time in generations, every nation's focus was fixed on the same threat. In the underground command center beneath Geneva, Commander Paul stood before a wide holographic display. The map showed the solar system, the alien fleet near Saturn, and predicted routes of approach. Lines of red moved slowly toward Earth. Along the bottom of the screen, a timer counted down. 7 days, 14 hours. Dr. Yara, fresh from a long night of calculations, joined him. The readings are consistent. Their ships are heavily armed. But there's something strange. They're moving in formation like they've done this many times before. Almost as if conquering new worlds is routine. For them, that would explain the confidence in their envoy's voice, Paul replied. To them, Earth is just another mark on a long list. General Liu entered, his uniform crisp, his tone firm. I've spoken with leaders from my region. They are split. Some want to prepare for resistance. Others think we should avoid bloodshed by surrendering. Paul turned from the screen. If we surrender, we don't know what they'll take from us or how far it will go. They say subordinate world, but that could mean stripping our resources, controlling our people, or worse. General Liu's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed. I agree. Which is why I've ordered readiness drills for our orbital defense satellites. They can't match the Council's firepower, but they can make the first hours of any battle costly. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Admiral Race had been speaking with the leaders of the Pacific Alliance through a secure channel. She now appeared on the screen beside Paul. Her voice was sharp and decisive. The fleets are moving too high. Alert! Submarine crews have been given sealed orders. and our deep-sea launch platforms will be ready in 48 hours. Paul gave a short nod. Good. If we're going to have any chance, every front must be prepared. But as the military planning continued, political tension was growing. In New Delhi, Cairo, and London, protests filled the streets. Some carried signs reading "No war with the stars." Others shouted slogans demanding to defend Earth at all costs. Leaders worried that fear and division could slow their preparations. That evening, Mara, the Secretary General, called Paul privately. Her voice carried the weight of responsibility. "Paul, I need to know if we choose to fight. Can we even win?" Paul paused before answering. "I won't lie. Their fleet is larger, faster, and likely more advanced, but winning doesn't always mean destroying the enemy. Sometimes it means holding long enough that they change their mind." Mara exhaled slowly. "Then we must prepare for the long fight." Over the next 2 days, the world's most advanced facilities became hives of activity. In Antarctica, engineers worked without rest inside vast underground shipyards. Massive railguns, each the size of a city block, were assembled on tracked platforms. The Lunar Defense Base installed heavy plasma batteries along the crater ridges. In orbit, stealth drones began quiet patrols, their black holes invisible against the darkness of space. Paul visited one of the hidden bunkers in the Swiss Alps, where scientists were developing an experimental weapon. The room was filled with coils, capacitors, and a faint blue glow. Dr. Malik, the lead scientist, greeted him with a firm handshake. "This is the Graviton Disruptor," Malik explained. "In theory, it can disable their propulsion systems at short range by interfering with their ship's gravity fields." "In theory?" Paul raised an eyebrow. "It has never been tested in real combat," Malik admitted, "but desperate times require desperate measures." Paul studied the machine. It was far from polished. Wires ran like vines along the walls, and coolant vapors hissed from vents. But he knew such innovations could change the balance. By the 4th day, new intelligence arrived from the Mars colonies. A mining vessel near the asteroid belt had detected strange transmissions from the alien fleet. The signals weren't in the universal translation pattern, they were encrypted bursts, almost like code between warships. YRA analyzed the data and discovered a repeating sequence. "It's a fleet coordination protocol," she told Paul. "If we can jam it, we might cause confusion among their ships during the first wave." "That could buy us time," Paul said. "Make it happen." Still, even as preparations advanced, there was an unspoken fear in the air. Humanity had never fought an enemy from another world. The unknown was as dangerous as the enemy itself. On the 5th day, Paul called a meeting of the Joint Defense Council. Representatives from every major power attended, either in person or via secure link. The room was filled with quiet urgency. Paul began. "We are not here to argue politics. We are here to survive. Our plan is simple: delay their advance, strike at vulnerable targets, and make the cost of attacking Earth too high for the Council to accept." General Liu displayed a simulation on the wall. "When they enter the moon's orbit, we strike with long-range weapons from the lunar batteries. At the same time, stealth drones will target their communication relays," Admiral Rice added. "Once their formation is broken, submarine launch platforms will fire hypersonic missiles at their nearest carriers. The Graviton Disruptor will be deployed against their command ships if we can close the distance." The room was silent for a moment. Then Mars spoke. "And if this fails?" Paul looked around the table. "If it fails, we fight until we can. But I don't believe we will fail. We have fought impossible odds before, and history will remember whether we stood or knelt." That night, Paul returned to his quarters in the command center. Through the small window, he could see the stars scattered over the dark sky. Somewhere out there, the alien fleet was drawing closer, each are bringing them nearer to Earth. He thought of the generations before him, the farmers, the soldiers, the explorers who had faced challenges beyond their understanding. They had built this world through hardship and sacrifice. Now it was his turn to protect it. On the 6th day, the alien ships passed Jupiter. Telescopes captured images of their hulls gleaming metal, massive engines, and strange symbols glowing faintly. The sight was enough to silence even the loudest debates. There was no denying that the most advanced war machines humanity had ever seen were coming straight for them. The countdown now read to days, 7 hours. The weight of history pressed on every shoulder. The 7th day began with a cold sunrise over the Atlantic. The world was awake before the light touched the oceans. Every major city was alive with activity. Military convoys moved through quiet streets, carrying sealed crates and equipment. Satellites relayed encrypted orders across continents. From above, Earth looked calm. But below, it was preparing for the largest defense in its history. Commander Paul stood in the main operations room beneath Geneva. The large central screen displayed a live map of Earth and the Moon, dotted with green markers for friendly forces and red markers for unknown alien positions. The alien fleet was now within Neptune's orbit, accelerating. In less than 40 hours, they would reach the Moon's sphere of influence. Dr. Yara entered, holding a datapad. "We've finished integrating the jamming code into the stealth drones," she said. "Once they get close to the alien formation, they'll begin transmitting interference signals. If our calculations are right, their fleet coordination will break for at least a few minutes. Minutes might be all we get," Paul replied. "Make sure the drone pilots know they may not come back." Yara hesitated. "They already know, and they're still volunteering." Across the room, General Liu was in discussion with a group of officers from different nations. Old rivalries were being set aside faster than anyone had thought possible. The Eastern Defense Command had given control of some orbital platforms to the Pacific Fleet. The European Union had shared access to its classified railgun systems with South American engineers. Even private space corporations were contributing resources, refueling stations, cargo haulers converted into missile carriers, and research prototypes taken straight from test facilities. Later that morning, a secure conference call was established between Earth's main command center, the Lunar Defense Base, and the Mars colonies. The screen lit up with 3 separate feeds. Admiral Race spoke first. "The Pacific Fleet is positioned and ready. Our deep-sea launch platforms are loaded. We've assigned each to a designated strike zone." Colonel Idris from the lunar base followed. "We have installed plasma batteries along the ridges of Shackleton Crater. They're powered and locked on the approach routes. Once the alien fleet enters the Moon's shadow, we will fire." From the Mars colony, Governor Kate added, "We can't join the fight directly, but our mining ships are sending raw materials for munitions and shield plating. We've also forwarded all research data we have on alien metals we've found in asteroids. It might help your targeting systems." Paul looked at each of them. "We are no longer separate nations or colonies. We are one line of defense. The Council wants us divided. Instead, we will show them unity." That evening, Paul visited the subterranean hangar where Earth's newest weapons were being assembled. The massive space was filled with rows of armored drones, their surfaces coated with radar-absorbing material. Engineers moved quickly, sealing panels and loading fuel cells. In one corner, the Graviton disruptor was being mounted onto a heavy assault craft. Dr. Malik stood nearby, watching over the process. "We've reinforced the coils and improved the stability. The disruptor can now hold a beam for 10 full seconds before overheating." "That's good," Paul said, "because if we get a shot at their command ship, that's all we'll have." Malik gave a small smile. "Let's hope we aim well." On the 8th day, the final preparations were underway. The railgun crews in Antarctica ran last-minute targeting drills. Stealth drone squadrons launched quietly from hidden bays in orbit, disappearing into the blackness of space. Submarines dove deep into the oceans, their missile hatches sealed and ready. Every soldier, pilot, and technician knew that once the first shot was fired, there would be no going back. In the command center, Mara addressed the Joint Defense Council. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "We have faced great challenges before: wars, disasters, crises that seemed impossible to overcome, but never like this. Today we are not fighting for borders or resources. We are fighting for the right to exist as a free people." Paul stepped forward after her. The Council believes their size and technology will make us kneel. What they have never understood is the human spirit. We adapt, we endure, and when pushed, we push back harder. The room was silent for a moment, and then one by one, the leaders nodded. Outside, the world was holding its breath. Families stayed close together. Cities dimmed their lights to conserve energy for defense grids. In rural areas, volunteers gathered supplies for the military. Even children seemed to understand the gravity of the days ahead. As night fell, Paul walked through the observation deck of the base. Beyond the glass, the moon glowed softly, unaware of the battle that would soon rage around it. He thought about what would happen if they failed Earth under the rule of a council that saw it only as a resource, its people treated as subjects, its future decided by others. That thought hardened his resolve. Early the next morning, with less than 24 hours remaining, a message came from the orbital watch stations. Multiple contacts detected, the operator reported. Alien forward scouts entering the outer moon perimeter. Paul leaned over the console. Are they engaging? Negative. They're observing. He understood what that meant. The Council was measuring Earth's defenses before committing their full force. It was a tactic older than space travel tests the enemy's reaction before the real strike. Keep our weapons cold for now, Paul ordered. No one fires until I give the command. Hours passed. The alien scouts retreated, likely carrying their observations back to the main fleet. Paul knew the next time they came, it would not be for observation. As the final night before the battle settled over the planet, the combined fleets, bases, and hidden platforms waited. Stealth drones were in position near the moon's far side. Railguns were locked on probable approach routes. Plasma batteries hummed with stored energy. The Graven Disruptor's assault craft sat ready in its hangar, its crew strapped in and waiting for launch orders. In his private quarters, Paul reviewed the operation plan one last time. He knew plans rarely survived first contact with the enemy, but they needed a starting point. A single miscalculation could mean the loss of millions. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, letting the silence wash over him. Tomorrow, the first shots would decide whether Earth stood free or was bound in chains. And when that moment came, there would be no hesitation. Somewhere far beyond the moon, the Council's fleet was advancing, confident that humanity would be just another conquered world. They would learn otherwise. The ninth day began in silence. The silence of waiting, of holding breath before the storm, in the blackness of space. Earth's defenses were ready, hidden in shadow. The moon's surface was dotted with camouflage plasma batteries. Stealth drones floated silently, drifting between fragments of rock and ice. Submarines rested deep beneath the oceans, their crews listening for the signal. In the Geneva Command Center, Commander Paul stood before the main screen. It showed the moon, Earth, and the space between. At the far edge of the display, dozens of red markers appeared. The alien fleet had entered the inner system. Their formations were tight, their speed steady. The timer in the corner read 11 hours, 42 minutes until contact. General Liu stepped beside Paul. We've confirmed their numbers. Over 80 large ships, supported by smaller escorts. Paul kept his voice even, and their command ship, dead. Center of the formation, larger than anything we've ever built. It's shielded and heavily armed. Dr. Yara looked up from her station. The jamming drones are in position. Once they start transmitting, their fleet's coordination will drop, but they'll only have a short window before the aliens find and destroy them. Short is enough, Paul said. We only need a few minutes. Hours passed as the alien fleet closed the distance across the planet. People were awake, glued to their screens. Families held hands. Soldiers sat in silence, helmets resting in their laps. Everyone knew that the moment would come soon. Finally, the watch officer's voice broke the tension. Alien fleet entering the moon's shadow. Paul turned to the room. All stations, prepare for Operation Dawn. On the far side of the moon, the stealth drones powered up. Their black holes blended with the void. Quietly, they began broadcasting. The jamming code Yara had designed. Invisible waves spread through space, touching the alien formation. The effect was immediate. Ships began to drift slightly out of formation, Maneuvers were delayed by fractions of a second. In the Geneva control room, Yara called out. Signal interference confirmed. They're reacting, but they haven't located the source. Paul gave the order. Lunar batteries. Fire! From the moon's surface, massive plasma beams lanced out, cutting through the darkness. The first volley struck a smaller alien escort, tearing through its shields and splitting the ship apart. The second volley hit a carrier, melting its launch. Bays before it could deploy fighters, the alien fleet reacted instantly. Energy weapons flaring in the distance. Bright arcs crossed space as they returned fire on the moon's surface, forcing plasma crews to shift positions. Railgun crews. Engage! Paul commanded. In Antarctica, railgun platforms roared to life. Magnetic coils spat hypervelocity rounds into orbit, each round moving faster than a meteor. The projectiles crossed the gap in seconds, smashing into alien hulls. A destroyer near the edge of the fleet took a direct hit, breaking in two. Admiral Reyes' voice came over the secure channel. Submarine platforms launching. Hypersonics away. From deep under the oceans, hidden launch tubes opened, sleek missiles shot upward, piercing the surface and streaking into space. They found targets among the alien escorts, detonating in bursts of light. The alien formation wavered under the unexpected assault. Their ships turned to face multiple threats at once, splitting their fire between the moon, Earth's orbit, and the mysterious attacks from the dark. In the chaos, a single assault craft launched from the lunar base. Its mission was clear: get close enough to the command ship to use the Graviton disruptor. Inside, the crew sat tense, hands gripping controls. The disruptor's coils glowed faint blue. Back in Geneva, Yara's voice cut through the noise. They found the jamming drones. We've got maybe 1 minute before they're gone. Paul nodded. All units, make it count. The assault craft darted between drifting debris, avoiding alien fire. Its pilot pushed the engines to their limits. On the main screen, the command ship loomed a massive shadow with rows of glowing symbols. Energy arcs danced across its surface as it fired at distant targets. The disruptor's operator called out, "Target locked." "Fire!" came the reply. The weapon unleashed a beam of distorted light, invisible except for the faint shimmer it left in space. It struck the command ship's propulsion field. For a moment, the giant vessel shuddered. Its engines flickered, and the formation around it shifted in confusion. Cheers erupted in the command center. But Paul raised his hand. "Stay focused. This isn't over." The alien fleet responded with brutal speed. Fighters swarmed the assault craft, forcing it to break away. Plasma beams lanced toward the moon, collapsing several defense positions. One railgun platform in Antarctica went silent after a direct hit from orbit. Damage reports coming in, General Liu said grimly. But for every loss, the aliens were taking hits they hadn't expected. Earth's forces had crippled for escorts, damaged a carrier, and temporarily disabled their command ship's propulsion. The opening move had worked, at least for now. The jamming drones were gone, burned to ash by alien fire. Without them, the fleet began to regroup. Their movements grew sharper, more coordinated. The red markers on the screen began closing in on the moon. Paul studied the display. They'll try to destroy the lunar base before moving on Earth. We need to pull them into a trap. General Liu understood at once. Draw them closer to the railgun arcs, force them into overlapping fire zones. Orders were relayed instantly. The remaining drones began harassing the fleet, forcing them to adjust course. Plasma batteries fired in precise bursts, aiming not just to hit, but to push the enemy where Earth's weapons could reach slowly. The alien ships drifted into the planned kill zone. Railgun platforms fired in unison, their rounds slamming into the densest part of the formation. Two more enemy ships broke apart, scattering debris. The alien fleet slowed, clearly reassessing. They had come expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had been met with a coordinated strike from a united planet. In the command center, Yara leaned toward Paul. "They didn't expect us to hit first. And they didn't expect us to hit this hard." Paul's gaze stayed on the display. "Good. Let them think about that, because this is only the beginning, far beyond." The Council's remaining ships pulled back slightly, their formation tightening. The battle for Earth had begun, and the first strike had shaken the galaxy. The alien fleet did not retreat for long. Within hours of the first strike, their ships regrouped, forming a massive wall of steel and light in the dark sky. The Council's forces advanced again, slower but more deliberate. Their command ship had restored partial propulsion, and its glowing engines burned like a warning to the defenders of Earth. In the Geneva Command Center, the main display showed the alien movement in real time. Red markers pushed past the moon, headed toward Earth's orbit. The countdown in the corner read 7 hours, 19 minutes until direct engagement with the planet. Commander Paul stood beside General Liu and Dr. Yara. The room was quieter than before. Everyone understood the next phase of the battle would be harder than the first. The enemy knew their tactics now. Surprise was gone. They'll target our orbital platforms first. Liu said, pointing to the map. Without them, Earth's surface will be exposed. Paul nodded. We'll have to protect the platforms as long as possible. Once they're gone, it's city defenses and atmosphere fighters. Reports poured in from around the world. Civilian evacuations were almost complete, deep bunkers beneath mountains. And oceans were sealed. Emergency shelters in every major city had filled with people. Above them, the skies were being prepared for war. Over the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Reyes commanded a carrier group stationed just beyond the horizon. Her voice came over the secure link. Our fighters are ready. Once they breach the atmosphere, we'll hit them hard. From the moon, Colonel Idris sent an update. The remaining plasma batteries will hold as long as we can. But we've taken heavy damage. If they push too hard, we'll have to abandon the surface. The alien fleet crossed the halfway point between the moon and Earth. Their smaller escorts moved ahead, releasing swarms of drones. The Council's drones were sharp, fast, and heavily armed. They fanned out in a wide net, scanning for human defenses. In low Earth orbit, stealth fighters moved into position. Their pilots watched as alien drones darted among satellites and debris. A few seconds later, the first exchange of fire lit up the darkness. Lasers and kinetic rounds streaked across space. Several alien drones exploded, but many more pushed through. Paul gave the next order. Activate orbital shields round the planet. A network of satellites projected overlapping energy barriers. The shields shimmered faintly, visible from the ground as ghostly arcs of light. Alien drones slammed into them, their impacts flashing like silent fireworks, but the shields could not hold forever. Energy levels dropped as the enemy poured fire into the same points, testing for weakness. One section over the South Atlantic flickered and collapsed. Alien drones surged through the gap. Redirect atmospheric fighters to intercept, Paul ordered. From air bases in Brazil and South Africa, squadrons of jet-black fighters launched into the sky. They climbed fast, their afterburners leaving thin trails in the upper atmosphere. The first group intercepted the alien drones before they could reach the surface, turning the high skies into a dance of light and fire. Below, the cities watched the battle overhead. In New York, people gathered near shelter entrances, staring at the streaks in the sky. In Beijing, evacuation trains sped toward underground stations. The sound of distant thunder rolled through the air, thunder not from storms, but from weapons. As the hours passed, the aliens pressed harder. Their main fleet entered geosynchronous orbit, lining up above key military zones. Energy beams fired down at surface targets, carving deep scars into the earth. Defense grids on the ground returned fire with anti-orbital cannons, launching bolts of plasma and guided missiles into the sky. At sea, the deep launch platforms began their second wave. Massive missiles rose from the ocean like spears, trailing steam before disappearing into the clouds. Moments later, bright explosions appeared among the alien fleet. One enemy destroyer cracked in half, spiraling toward the atmosphere. But for every victory, there was loss. Several orbital defense platforms were destroyed, their wreckage burning as it fell toward the planet. One plasma battery on the moon was silenced completely after sustained bombardment. The defenders were being pushed back, step by step. In Geneva, Dr. Yara studied incoming data. Paul, I've found something. Their attacks are focusing on our communication relays. If they take those out, our coordination will fall apart. How long until they can disable them? Paul asked. 2 hours, maybe less. Paul turned to the operations staff. Then in 2 hours, we hit their flagship. If we can cripple it, the rest might break. The Graviton Disruptor's crew, still alive after the first strike, was ordered to prepare for another run. Their assault craft had been repaired as much as possible, though its hull bore the scars of earlier fighting. The crew understood this might be their final mission while they readied the craft. The siege intensified. Alien landing pods began dropping toward remote areas, carrying ground forces. In the deserts of Central Asia, heavy walkers touched down, their long legs crushing sand and rock beneath them. In the forests of South America, smaller assault teams moved quickly, seeking to destroy hidden launch sites. Local defense units fought back with whatever they had: artillery, drones, even modified civilian vehicles. Farmers fired at alien machines from the edges of their fields. Police units directed civilians to safety while exchanging fire with alien scouts. Every corner of the planet was resisting. The assault craft carrying the Graviton Disruptor launched. During a brief lull in the orbital fighting, it slipped through debris fields. Using the chaos of the siege as cover, the flagship loomed ahead, larger and darker than the other vessels. Its shields rippled as it absorbed constant impacts from Earth's railguns and missiles. Inside the craft, the disruptor operator called out, "Power at maximum, targeting field generators." Back in Geneva, Paul watched the feed in silence. The craft moved dangerously close to the flagship's hull. Enemy fighters closed in, but the crew fired countermeasures, buying precious seconds, firing. The operator said. A wave of distorted energy rippled across the flagship's engines. Lights along its spine dimmed, then flared again. The ship shuddered, losing control for a moment. Across the alien formation, movement slowed. Their firepower weakened, as if the fleet itself was stunned. The command center erupted in cheers. But Paul raised his hand. "Hold your celebrations. They'll fight harder now." He was right. The alien fleet answered with a furious barrage. The disruptor craft was destroyed in a flash of light, its crew lost instantly. The flagship's shields flared back to life, but its movements remained slower, less precise. Paul's voice was steady as he gave the next orders. "All units, press the attack. Push them back from orbit. Make them remember this day." For the next hour, Earth's defenders fought with renewed determination. Railguns fired without pause. Fighters streaked through the atmosphere, chasing alien drones into the dark. Surface batteries targeted any ship that drifted to low dot by. The time the sun rose over the Pacific, the alien fleet was still in orbit, but their advance had stalled. The siege was far from over, but for the first time since the Council had arrived, the people of Earth felt something new: hope. The battle over Earth had reached a dangerous stalemate. The alien fleet remained in orbit, their massive warships blotting out the stars. Energy beams lanced toward the surface, leaving deep scars on mountains, oceans, and cities. Humanity had survived the first strike, but the cost had been high. Satellites were destroyed, railgun platforms damaged, and thousands of troops had been lost. In the Geneva Command Center, Commander Paul studied the latest intelligence. Dr. Yara was analyzing intercepted communications from the Council's fleet. "Paul, I've decrypted part of their network," she said. "These messages show that Earth was never just another planet to subjugate. They fear us. Our rapid technological growth, our ability to resist. They think we might challenge the Council itself in the future." Paul frowned. "So this isn't about control or resources. It's about stopping a potential threat before it grows." "Exactly," Yara replied. "And it explains why they are so focused on our communication networks and defense systems. They want to isolate us before striking with full force." General Liu leaned over the map, pointing at red markers on the screen. "If this is true, other young civilizations under the Council's rule might feel the same fear. If we can expose this, we might gain allies." Paul nodded slowly. "Then we do it. Send a broadcast. We'll reveal the Council's motives and their manipulation of other worlds. Other species may choose to help us across the galaxy." Yara prepared the transmission. It was carefully coded and sent through a secure frequency that the Council could not immediately block. Within minutes, encrypted messages from several alien civilizations began reaching Earth's network. They were short, but clear intelligence, supply details, and warnings about the Council's weaknesses. Paul realized the implications immediately. They're secretly supporting us. These worlds have suffered under the Council and want to see it weakened. Not all of them, Yara cautioned. Some may still be loyal, but even a few will make a difference. With the new intelligence, Earth adjusted its defense strategy. Railguns were repositioned to target weaker sections of the alien formation. Orbital fighters received guidance about vulnerable entry points. The Graviton Disruptor's technology was analyzed to create smaller versions that could be launched on stealth drones, increasing the odds of hitting high-priority targets. Meanwhile, the alien fleet tried to regroup. Their command ship remained partially disabled. Coordination among the smaller ships was slower. Pilots and engineers on Earth noticed small gaps in formation that had not existed before. Paul called a meeting of all global military leaders via secure channel. This is the moment. He said, "We are no longer alone. Other civilizations are helping us, even if they cannot fight directly, but they have given us information. Knowledge is now our greatest weapon." Admiral Reyes spoke next. "We can strike with more confidence. Our orbital fighters and surface batteries can focus on weak points. We can force their fleet into sections where we control the battlefield." General Liu added, "If we can disable the flagship completely, the rest of their ships will hesitate or retreat. They rely on centralized command." The plan was set into motion. At first light, stealth drones equipped with mini Graviton disruptors slipped out of Earth's hidden bays and into orbit. They approached the alien formation from angles previously unobserved by the Council. As they drew closer, the drones released the disruptive energy waves, targeting the engines of smaller warships. For the first time since the battle began, cracks appeared in the alien formation. Ships drifted slightly off course, their firepower uncoordinated. Earth's orbital fighters seized the moment. Jets streaked through the blackness of space and into the atmosphere, engaging enemy drones with precision fire. On the moon, Colonel Idris commanded the remaining plasma batteries. "Now," he said, every cannon fired in unison, sending beams that cut through shields and struck critical points on the alien vessels. Explosions lit up the dark side of the moon, sending shock waves into the surrounding space. At sea, Admiral Reyes coordinated the launch of hypersonic missiles from deep platforms, guided by intelligence from other alien worlds. The missiles struck alien ships that had been weakened by the disruptors. One destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash, followed by a carrier that began to drift uncontrollably. Back in Geneva, Paul watched the display. "Keep the pressure on. Do not let them stabilize." Dr. Yara's fingers flew over the controls. "We've intercepted another communication. Their morale is slipping. The fleet doesn't trust their commanders anymore." The turning point had arrived. The alien flagship, still partially functional, tried to regroup the remaining ships. But Earth's forces had learned its weaknesses, coordinated attacks from multiple directions, along with sabotage from the mini disruptors, forced the flagship into evasive maneuvers. Paul gave the final orders. "Focus fire on the flagship. All units, aim for the central engine arrays." Stealth drones darted toward the command ship. Many disruptors were activated simultaneously. Railguns and plasma batteries fired volleys directly at the flagships. Vulnerable points. The alien vessel shuddered violently, its shields flickering. Sparks and energy arcs ran across its surface. For a moment, silence filled the command center. Every eye on the screen waited. Then, a massive explosion ripped through the flagship. The main engines failed completely. Smaller ships nearby hesitated, their formation disrupted. Some turned back, others drifted aimlessly. The victory was not complete, but the Council's fleet was forced to retreat. Humanity had struck the first decisive blow. Paul exhaled slowly. They thought they could break us. Instead, they have shown the galaxy that Earth will not kneel. Dr. Yara smiled faintly. And now other worlds know it too. Across Earth, people cheered as news of the partial victory spread. Cities erupted with celebration. But the leaders remained vigilant. They knew the battle was not over. The council would regroup. But Earth now held a powerful advantage: knowledge, strategy, and allies across the stars. That night, Paul looked at the sky. Stars glimmered above, and somewhere out there, civilizations secretly preparing to support humanity stirred in hope. For the first time, the future of Earth did not feel hopeless. The turning point had come, and the defenders of the planet were ready to stand, no matter the cost. The war was far from over. But the Council had learned an important lesson. Earth was not a world that could be controlled. Humanity's courage, ingenuity, and refusal to submit had turned the tide. And in that moment, Commander Paul knew one thing with certainty: Earth would continue to fight, and one day, it would secure its place among the stars as a free and unbowed world. The alien fleet had retreated from Earth's orbit, but the planet was far from safe. Satellites were destroyed, cities bore scars from orbital bombardments, and millions of civilians had been displaced. Yet the message of the day was clear. Humanity had survived, and it had struck back. The galaxy had begun to notice. Commander Paul stood in the Geneva Command Center, studying the aftermath. The main display showed retreating red markers fading into the distance. Dr. Yara hovered beside him, analyzing intercepted transmissions. They are pulling back, but they aren't giving up. The Council is reevaluating their strategy, and from what we can read, they are sending messages to other young worlds, warning them not to rise up. Paul clenched his fists. Then we'll be ready. We've already proven that Earth is not easy prey. Other civilizations will see that. Some may join us, and some may hesitate before attacking. General Liu stepped forward, voice calm but firm. We should consolidate our defenses. The orbital platforms need repair. Railguns need realignment, and our stealth drones require full maintenance. We can't rely on a single victory to ensure safety. Paul nodded. Do it. And at the same time, we need to send a message to the galaxy. Humanity will not bow, but it does seek allies. We need to show that we are a planet, capable of defense and diplomacy alike. Dr. Yara tapped the sequence into her console. The broadcast is ready. We'll send it through all open networks, using signals that can reach nearby star systems. It will explain our resistance, reveal the Council's fear of Earth's potential, and invite peaceful civilizations to communicate. As the message was sent, Earth began the slow process of rebuilding. Cities repaired communications. Power grids were restored, and emergency shelters began returning people to safe zones. Engineers worked around the clock to repair orbital platforms, and scientists analyzed alien technology recovered from destroyed drones and ships. Every scrap of information was studied carefully, ready to give humanity an advantage in the next encounter. Meanwhile, in space, the Council convened. The surviving alien fleet had pulled back to the outer system, where the flagship's engines had been repaired. Discussions among their leaders were heated. Reports indicated that the humans had struck first, with precision and coordination that no one expected. Other worlds under the Council's control were quietly questioning their authority. Back on Earth, Paul met with global leaders in a secure council. The first battle is over, but the war may continue, he said. Our message to the galaxy has already reached other civilizations. Some may respond with aid, information, or resources. The Council may try again, but we are no longer alone. We have demonstrated our capability, and we have shown that humanity will stand. Admiral Reyes spoke next. Our fleets are ready. Once we integrate intelligence from allied civilizations, we can improve our defenses significantly. We've learned the enemy's tactics and weaknesses. If they return, we can prepare even more effectively. General Liu added, the Council fears humanity because we are adaptable. We can strike first, improvise, and resist. Other species may have followed their rules without question, but humans question, challenge, and endure. That is what makes U.S. dangerous in their eyes. In the following days, the first messages of support arrived from other worlds. Star systems far beyond the Council's direct control sent warnings, data, and even new technologies. One world provided energy shields that could temporarily block high-powered beams. Another offered mapping data for regions of space where the Council's fleet had weak patrols. Small but powerful, these contributions strengthened Earth's defenses. On the surface, humanity celebrated cautiously. Cities that had been damaged were partially restored. Communities came together to honor the soldiers, pilots, and civilians who had resisted the siege. Despite the destruction, there was a sense of pride. Humanity had stood together when the odds seemed impossible. Paul walked among the people of Geneva in the evening, watching children play in a park restored with temporary structures. The air smelled faintly of smoke and repair efforts, but there was laughter too. Citizens waved at the passing military convoys, understanding that these men and women had fought to keep them safe. He thought back to the first message from the Council. The demand to kneel before them, it seemed so absurd now. Humanity had faced destruction and had responded not with submission, but with strategy, courage, and unity. In orbit, the repaired railguns and plasma batteries were ready. Stealth drones hovered silently in the darkness. Submarines rested in the deep oceans, prepared for any return of enemy forces. Humanity had rebuilt, but it had also learned. Every move, every formation, every tactic had been studied. Paul convened a final strategy meeting. We do not know when the Council will attempt another attack, he began. But when they do, we will be ready. We have allies, knowledge, and courage. And we will continue to defend our planet, not as isolated nations, but as one humanity. Dr. Yara displayed the incoming messages from alien civilizations. Many are hesitant to join militarily, but they are providing technology and intelligence. They are willing to act as our eyes and ears, alerting us to movements in the Council's fleets. This is more than survival, Paul said. This is recognition. Other worlds are seeing humanity as a force in the galaxy, not as subjects to be controlled. Across the planet, communities celebrated quietly but proudly. In space, the fleets maintained vigilance. Humanity had survived the siege, had repelled the first strike, and had turned the Council's fear into an advantage. The galaxy now saw that humans were resilient, intelligent, and unbowed. One evening, Paul returned to the observation deck of the command center. Stars stretched across the sky, distant and bright. Somewhere out there, civilizations that had once feared the Council were quietly aiding humanity. Somewhere beyond, the Council's fleet repaired its engines and analyzed the humans' tactics. But Paul did not feel fear. He felt resolve. Humanity had stood when threatened. Humanity had struck when necessary. Humanity had survived. He knew that the future would bring challenges, perhaps even battles greater than the first. Yet the lesson of the past days was clear. Earth would never kneel. Humanity would adapt, endure, and rise to meet any threat. Below, across the planet, the people slept or worked, rebuilt or rested, unaware of the full scale of the galaxy watching them. Above, in space, the remnants of the Council's fleet retreated. For now, Earth was safe, its defenders vigilant, and his message sent loud and clear. Commander Paul looked at the stars and smiled faintly. Humanity had faced the impossible. Humanity had endured. Humanity had won its place among the stars, not by submission, but by courage, ingenuity, and unity. And with that, a new chapter for Earth began. One where humans were no longer just residents of a small blue planet. They were a force in the galaxy. They were survivors. They were unbroken. The Council had learned a critical truth. The human spirit could not be contained. The galaxy would remember that lesson forever.